What is the best Pixar movie? How many Pixar movies are there? And which one is my favorite? Well, I talk about all that and more on this episode of the Toddcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Toddcast. As always, I am your host, Todd McManus, and it is finally cold. I think I mentioned that last week. It is definitely cold, and yes, I have been wishing for it, but not this much. I did not want it to get this cold, so it's cold, and that's about it. That's honestly that's all that's happening right now. Just waiting out the cold, just doing adult married things, like working and watching TV and eating food that my wife cooks for me, and that I'm grateful for. That she is a very good cook. And everything else that she does for me. So that's really about it. My life is eventful, I'll tell you that. But as you probably heard in the intro, there is an eventful episode today because from what I've heard from different people who listen, all you listeners out there, that some of you actually do, like a majority of you actually, do enjoy a good bit of the tier list that I happen to do. And I thank y'all for that. And since we're getting close to the end of the year, since this episode will be out on December 16th, why not end the year off with one final tier list before the year ends? And I looked through tiermaker.com. I'll give them a shout out on tiermaker.com, which is a great website and actually the gold standard website for all your tier list needs. They do great things over there. You can create your own tier list or just look up any tier list that you want that could be related to any movie, show, food, NBA, NFL, like literally any sport, game, anything like that, and even video games, of course. Literally anything that you could create a tier list for, whether it's about, which is your favorite Grand Theft Auto game, which is your favorite character from a show, your favorite SpongeBob characters, anything, literally. So check out tiermaker.com. This isn't sponsored by them, even though it sounds like it is. But I just want to give them a shout out because I don't know if I've actually mentioned them before or not. But with that being said, we got a great tier list today because I am actually going to be ranking all of the Disney Pixar movies. That's right, just the Pixar, not all the animated ones, just the Pixar movies. And there's quite a lot, and I've actually seen a majority of them, honestly, surprisingly. This is something that I actually have seen a good amount of the Pixar movies. So we're just going to go ahead and dive into it. First off, I already looked through the list, and I want to go through the 5 movies that I have not seen. I have seen every movie on this list, which is like 20 of them, but I have not seen 5 of these movies. And I want to quickly go through those real quick. I have not seen Coco, which is a pretty popular movie from what I've seen. I have seen some of the commercials, and I have not seen the movie Coco. I have also not seen the movie The Good Dinosaur. I vaguely know what that is. And also I haven't seen Soul. I haven't seen it either. I haven't seen Onward. And I do know what that movie is. And I kind of do want to see it. I might actually watch it soon. And I haven't seen the movie Luca. I have no clue what that movie is about. I would have to look that up. But I'm not going to do that right now because I do not care. So, with all that out of the way, we're going to go ahead and dive into some of these movies and all of these movies that are left on this list. In no particular order, really. But we are going to start with what I think is actually the first. I want to say it's the first Pixar movie. We're going to go off with good old Toy Story. Now, the first Toy Story movie, of course, this is really the standard. This movie came out in the mid-90s. And kind of just set the pace with the Pixar movies. Because from what I've seen, if you've seen all the Pixar movies, there's really not a bad Pixar movie. So, I can't say that the ones that I haven't seen are good or bad. But there's really not an F tier movie. There are some that are definitely not that good, but they're not god awful. They're not, just make me want to throw up. But the first Toy Story movie is a great movie. Toy Story 1 is without a doubt one of, if not the best, top of the best Pixar movies. I'm definitely going to have to put the first Toy Story movie in the A tier. Because while it is great, and we can all agree that the first Toy Story is amazing, the next movie, I feel like, is just better than the first Toy Story movie, and I got to give that to Toy Story 2. Toy Story 2 is definitely an S-tier movie. It is just so good. It introduces Jessie and Bullseye and Stinky Pete. And they're getting the guy, I forget his name, but the guy, and he ended up having the Cheeto fingers. And it has one of the most satisfying scenes in any animated movie of when the old man cleans Woody and cleans his eyes and his boot and wipes off Andy from the bottom of it. Great movie. Top of the line. I have seen this movie a lot, and it's just such a good movie. So Toy Story 2 is definitely one of the best Pixar movies. The next one, of course, is Toy Story 3. This is the one where Andy is going to college, and he gives up all of his toys to, I don't know her name, it's a little girl, and she ends up taking Woody to a daycare, and I think it was Woody or one of them that would rather stay at the daycare at first, but ended up realizing that, you don't need to, and they were going to get played with by different kids and all that, and, the pink bear, I forget his name too, but he was the one in charge, and it had that monkey with the clapping symbols, that was like the security guard. But the end of the movie, towards the end, there was a really sad part of the movie where, everybody thought they were going to die whenever they put them all in that like trash compactor, and it was putting them towards the fire, and they were going to kill all of them. But other than that, it's not really much of memorable in the middle. Because I know there was a Barbie, and then Ken was there. But I don't really remember much of anything else that was in the middle of this movie. So I would have to put Toy Story 3 in the B tier, because other thing I can remember is that they had Buzz Lightyear be Spanish. And that was about it. So, and then finishing out with Toy Story is Toy Story 4. I saw this movie in theaters when it first came out, and I think that's like the only time I've ever seen this movie. I don't know if I've ever watched it again. But, Woody and the Spork character, they get lost, and they have to find their way back to the family. And then the end of this movie is kind of sad, because Woody is left behind with Bo Peep, because he found Bo Peep. I don't know where Bo Peep was in Toy Story 3, but they probably explained that, but I don't know. So, but yeah. So, this movie, I think, was also good, but not really too memorable, honestly. I'm going to put Toy Story 4 also in the B tier. But yeah, so it's just, it's not to the standard of Toy Story 2. Toy Story 2 was peak Toy Story. So the next movie we have is A Bug's Life. And I really wanted them to make A Bug's Life 2, honestly. I think A Bug's Life 2 definitely would have built more off of the story from the first Bug's Life movie, and it just would have been a fun sequel, A Bug's Life is definitely an A-tier Pixar movie. It's really good. There's so many great moments in that movie. I don't even remember. He was the big caterpillar, and he grew like the little baby wings, and he said, "I'm a beautiful butterfly." That was The Bug's Life was just, I think it was the second Pixar movie. It was either the first or second, because I think Toy Story was number 1, and I think A Bug's Life was number 2. But they never did anything else with that. You know, in the age and day and age of sequels and remakes and everything, I feel like A Bug's Life would have gotten a second movie, but sadly it didn't. So the next movie we have, we're going with Finding Nemo. Now, Finding Nemo, I gotta put that as an S-tier Pixar movie, because that movie is very good and it's so memorable. And, you know, Dory, and they're running away from the shark at that point, and then they're trying to get to Nemo, and then they're in that dentist office, and then there's the turtles. Like, it's such a good movie. Finding Nemo is without a doubt a great movie. But we got the sequel, which was Finding Dory. I watched this movie once, and to be honest, there's only one part I can remember, and it's whenever the octopus breaks out and starts driving the car towards the end. That's about all I can remember from this movie. So, Finding Dory would probably go in C tier, because it's just not a memorable movie. The next movie we're going with, and the next set of movies, I should say, the next series of movies, is the Cars movies. Now, I have actually recently watched all 3 of the Cars movies, and without a doubt, I can say I've always heard, you know, different or bad rep for Cars 2. Cars 2 is a great movie. It's the one where Mater becomes a spy, and he works with Holly Shiftwell and Finn McMissile, and, you know, they're in Italy, and they're in Japan, and they're in England. Such a good movie. It's really good. But the first Cars movie that set the standard for Lightning McQueen when he found Radiator Springs and became friends with Mater and started liking Sally and all that kind of stuff. It set the standard for the story, and just a really fun movie. The first Cars and had Life is a Highway as the big song for that movie, which, you know, everybody can remember that song from the movie. So the first Cars goes into A tier. I would also put Cars 2 as well in A tier, but Cars 3 was a little interesting, because I have watched it I've only watched it once, and I watched it for the first time about 2 to 3 months ago, and it was good, but I felt like it was super long. Like it didn't need to be too long. And it just had way too much parts to it. And the story was kind of weird, because it didn't start out that way. And then it ended up being that the yellow car, I don't remember her name, but it was supposed to be like the yellow car who was the trainer for Lightning McQueen, ended up becoming like the protege or apprentice to Lightning McQueen. And Lightning was teaching her to become a racer because she wanted to be a racer. And then in the end, the last race, she ended up subbing in for him and winning it all. It's just a weird, interesting movie. It wasn't bad, but I would have to put Cars 3 in the C tier, because a lot of it is forgettable. Even though I have watched it recently, it's just not, you know, it's not a Cars movie. Cars 2 was great, and the first Cars was fun, but I don't know. You make a Cars movie, and then the characters that you have established, you kind of just forget about. Because where was Mater? Where did Mater go? So, yeah. So the next movie we have, and actually 2 movies we have, is Monsters, Inc. Now, Monsters, Inc. is a great movie. I really like Monsters, Inc. It's a good movie. I'm putting Monsters, Inc. in the A tier. It's just such a good movie. The ending of it kind of gets fuzzy to me, because the ending isn't really talked about, I feel like. The beginning of them, you know, going through the doors, getting the screams, and then all of those yellow hazmat guys run in because there's a sock on the back of the orange monster dude. It's such a funny movie, and Mike Wazowski and all of that is just hilarious and such a good movie. So I would have to put Monsters, Inc. in A tier for that. But then they made Monsters University, and this movie just makes no sense, really, kind of in the continuity of Monsters, Inc., because why? Like, why? Why did they have to make this movie? They couldn't have made a Monsters, Inc. 2 or something. Monsters University is not that good of a movie. It is very forgetful. I don't really remember it. It's got to be one of the worst Pixar movies they've made, but it's not bad. I would put it in D, because I'll take that back. It is bad, but it's not the worst. So, the next movie we have on here is Brave. Now, I don't really remember much about the movie Brave. I would have to put it just in C tier, honestly, because I have very much forgot about what happened in that movie. I'm going to have to rewatch it, and then it might get bumped up to B or bumped down if it's bad. But I've heard good things about the movie Brave, and she's basically a Disney princess now, and she's got the red hair, but I don't really remember the story or anything about that movie. The next movie we have is Ratatouille. Now, this movie, if this movie doesn't make you hungry, I don't know what will, because everybody knows the Ratatouille scene, and it's him eating the cheese and the strawberry or a grape or whatever it is. I think it's a grape, and he eats the grape, and you feel it. You feel the movement, and then you eat the cheese, and you feel it. You still feel it, and then you eat both of them, and you feel the sweetness and the cheesiness, and you're just feeling it. This movie makes me hungry every time I watch it because of them cooking the food. It's a good movie. Ratatouille is a really top-notch movie, and I would have to put this movie, I'd have to put Ratatouille in the S tier, honestly, because the song, the I don't know the words of it because I think it's in French, but it's memorable. It got very famous and viral on TikTok and throughout other cooking videos on Instagram or Facebook. So Ratatouille is an S tier movie alongside Toy Story 2. The next movie we have is, or set of movies, I should say, the next two movies, is The Incredibles. Now, the first Incredibles, great movie. It's amazing. And with how much love there was for this movie, I feel like a second one wouldn't have happened. But The Incredibles, the first Incredibles, is definitely an S tier movie because it's just so good. And Where Is My Super Suit? Such a good movie, without a doubt. Great movie. Now, The Incredibles 2, I think I watched this in theaters. I don't really remember much about the second Incredibles because it just wasn't, it didn't have that thing about the first Incredibles, Incredibles 2, while it still was good, it just isn't that memorable to me. I don't really remember much about the Incredibles 2, and that's why I'm putting the Incredibles 2 in the B tier, because it's still a good movie. It's just not, it's just not on par with the first one. So I would have to put The Incredibles 2 in the B tier. So, the next movie we have is WALL-E. Now, WALL-E is a great movie and just an interesting story. And, he meets the girl, I think her name was Eve, the girl robot, and then they ended up going up to the spaceship because Earth had so much trash that they literally had to leave Earth, and then they come back years later, but all the people on the ship are fat because they're taken care of by the robots. And the end of it is just that they're basically going to rebuild Earth alongside the robots and not just be in those chairs getting fed and watch TV and hang out at the pool, all that kind of stuff. So WALL-E, it's a great movie. It's still a very good movie, I say. I would have to put WALL-E in the A tier. The next movie we have is Up. I love this movie. The movie Up is so good that him and his wife were together, and then she ends up dying, and they try to get his house, but they don't, and then the Boy Scout comes, and then they end up getting all the balloons on the house, and then they take off, and then they end up meeting the bad guy, I forget his name, and then he had, the talking dogs, and then they met Doug, and then the snipe, and then in the end, the house was left on the cliff where they wanted it to be, and it was just a cool ending to the movie as well, and such a good movie. It was just a really, really good movie. So I would put Up in S tier because it's so good. The next movie we have is Turning Red. I actually have seen, I don't know if I've seen all of this movie, but I have seen a good portion of this movie. Turning Red, decent movie, I would say. I would have to put it in the C tier because I don't really remember anything except the end when they all just kind of turn into these red pandas. So that's about it. So the next movie I have seen recently, honestly, for the first time, was Inside Out. This movie, I say, it was good, but the whole middle part I felt was just weird that it happened, and there were some parts that I felt like just didn't need to happen it's just one of those things where it had some aggravating moments to me because of what was happening in the character. The character's sadness, while she ended up being a great character and she had a good character arc, to the end, I ended up liking her. But in the beginning, she was not a good character. She was just doing that, and no one understood. And then over time, you ended up understanding that, you can't just have just a happy memory or just a sad memory. It's going to be both. It's going to cause some happiness and some sadness. When you remember something, oh, I was happy in that moment, I remember it, but I was sad because it happened somewhere else where I don't live anymore. So, Inside Out was good, and I would have to put that in the B tier. So we're down to the last two. One of these is the movie Lightyear, which is based off of Buzz Lightyear. And this movie, I don't really get this movie. It was kind of weird, and the first 30 minutes was just a weird sequence, I feel like, of him constantly flying into space and going around the planet, around the sun, because it was proving time travel or something. And it was just a weird movie, and he ended up fighting himself in the end, and that's what it was. And the whole Zurg thing was weird because this is the movie that apparently Andy watched that wanted him to get a Buzz Lightyear toy. So yeah, it's just kind of forgettable, and I would have to put it in the C tier because it was good when I watched it and interesting. It's just, it was just kind of weird is what I would say. So the final movie on the Pixar list, which is one of the most recent Pixar movies, is Elemental. I have recently watched this within the past few weeks, and I thought this movie was pretty good. I enjoyed it. I didn't know much about it. I didn't know what was going to happen. All I knew is that it was a girl made of fire and a guy made of water, and they tried to, be a thing and be a couple and see how it works when two elements who aren't the same come together, and it ended up working. It was a cool movie. It was, a good story. It has some funny moments, and the animation is just really good. I would give Elemental B tier is where I would put it, because it was just a fun movie, and it definitely opens up for a sequel to happen as well. I definitely think a sequel can happen because of that movie. So yeah, with all that being said, the standings go as this. In Never Seen, I have never seen Soul, The Good Dinosaur, Onward, Coco, and Luca. There are no movies in the F tier. The movies in D tier is Monsters University. C tier movies are Brave, Cars 3, Finding Dory, Lightyear, and Turning Red. B tier, we have Toy Story 3, Toy Story 4, The Incredibles 2, Inside Out, and Elemental. In A tier, we have Toy Story, A Bug's Life, Cars, Cars 2, Monsters, Inc., Finding Nemo, and WALL-E. And in S tier, I've got Toy Story 2, Ratatouille, The Incredibles, and Up. Now, I think that is quite the list, I would have to say. So, with all that being said, I think that's actually going to do it for this episode. Make sure you tune in next week. Next week's episode is I have a special announcement, so I want to make sure that you tune in next week for my special announcement that I have, and it's going to actually change the Toddcast forever. So make sure you listen to next week's episode, which will be on December 23rd. We're getting closer and closer to Christmas and the new year into 2024, and it's almost to the 4-year anniversary. So just make sure you listen next week for my special announcement. And I think that's going to do it for this episode. Thank all of you for listening. As always, please rate and subscribe. And if you're listening on YouTube, please like, comment, subscribe, and click that bell to get notified when new videos are uploaded. And make sure you follow the Toddcast on Instagram for all your updates and Toddcast needs. And you can see a picture of the tier list over on my official Instagram page of the Toddcast. Make sure you tell your friends and family to give it a listen, and thank all of you once again for listening to this episode. And if you want to know what's going to happen next week, well, you're just going to tune in to find out. Only on the Toddcast.